Welcome to Lesson 3 of Unit 11, Home for a Penguin. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how do we describe material properties and use properties to make decisions? Students will work in small groups to examine and describe materials with different properties. They figure out that matter can be described and classified by its observable physical properties. They also connect the physical properties of those materials to their purpose. In the Engage, use the photos shown here to ask students how they would describe the sweater and the rocks to someone who can't see or touch them. After thinking time, have them share with a partner, a small group, and then the whole class. Ask students to decide which item is better, the sweater or the rocks. What is each of these items used for? Why might one be better suited for a certain purpose than the other? Then display this slide of a penguin habitat, asking them to notice the materials used to create it. Explain that they need to learn about different materials to make good decisions about the design of their own habitat. Note that this is the purpose of the next activities, to describe materials and use properties of materials to design things for a particular purpose. In the Explore, students will work in small groups to explore properties of materials. You will need to provide each group with the following materials from the mySci kit: 1 wooden block, 1 pink eraser, 1 brass fastener, a small cup or lid to hold yellow paint, a graphite stick, and 3 cotton swabs. Place a small amount of the yellow paint in the small cup to use for testing. Note that the pencils provided should be reserved for another activity later on in this lesson. Students will use the Materials Properties exploration on Student Journal page 8 to preview the properties they are observing. Instruct students to observe each material and record what they find in the correct space on the table. Teacher guidance for this page is provided on Teacher page 7. Once groups have finished, allow each group to share out one row of the chart, discussing findings as a class if there are differences in observation data. In the Explain, return to the table on Student Journal page 8 using the question prompts shown here to define the terms material and property as they are used in this lesson. Then use this reading, Material Properties, to support student understanding. Return to the Student Journal page 8 and add the vocabulary terms flexibility and texture to the appropriate spots in the first column. Continue reflecting on the reading by asking for other ideas about what properties of materials could be recorded. Students may mention measurements such as length, weight, or volume. Then give each student group a pencil and use these question prompts to continue the discussion. The pencil is made of wood, like the block. It has yellow paint, like the yellow paint in the cup. Has an eraser, like the one that they observed. A metal ferrule, similar to the brass fastener, and a graphite tip like the one that they were given. Next, direct students to the second page of the Material Properties exploration on Student Journal page 9. Ask students to draw their pencil in the space at the top, then work as a group to complete the table at the bottom of the page. Remind students of the criteria on the Student Scientific Drawing rubric on Student Journal page 3 to help support their drawings. In the Elaborate, ask them why materials work in different ways. Then use this article to help explain the properties of materials and why they are best for the job that they do. Give each student a piece of foam and a paper clip from the mySci kit, and direct them to Student Journal page 10, Material Properties Practice. Be sure they understand the data table, and then give time for them to complete the activity individually or in pairs before discussing as a class. Finally, ask them how knowing about properties of materials might help in their design of a penguin habitat. Show students some of the materials they will use in their design during Lesson 5. These materials include bubble wrap, foil, felt, plastic wrap, foam sheets, and black garbage bags. Use the question prompts shown here and a think, pair, share strategy to help students discuss properties of these materials. In the Evaluate, reflect with students about how they took on the role of scientists as they explored properties of materials and thought about the best purpose of them. Be sure they understand how this connects to designing a zoo habitat with many different materials. Finally, direct students to Student Journal page 11, Choosing the Best Material. Explain that they are going to practice what they have learned by thinking about habitats for fish and mice. At the top of the page, they will choose materials and properties that they believe a fish tank should have. At the bottom, they will choose materials and properties for a cage that will house baby mice. By the end of this lesson, students will examine, describe, and classify materials based on observable properties and relate those properties of a material to its function and use.